Hello, and welcome to the Moms Love Coaching Podcast, where we talk about self-care from the inside out for moms. I'm your host, Carrie McFarland, along with Angie Turgeon-Ledoux. We are certified life coaches and moms, and in this podcast, we'll go beyond the take a spa day advice and talk about real and sustainable ways that you can feel better, be happier, and stay out of overwhelm and burnout. You spend your life taking care of everyone else. In this podcast, each week, it's all about you taking care of you with no guilt and no apologies. We're so happy that you've decided to spend this time with us, so go ahead and grab your favorite cup of coffee, find a comfortable place, and get ready to spend the next 30 minutes focusing on the most important person in your life, you. Welcome, everybody. It's Moms Love Coaching, self-care from the inside out. It's Carrie and Angie. We're back for another week of talking about self-care for moms. And if you are just joining us for the first time, the self-care from the inside out concept is really an identity. So what we talk about is everything that moms need to do to create the identity of a person who prioritizes herself no matter what. And so coming from that place, everything that you do is self-care. And so that's what we mean by, when we say self-care from the inside out, because you have the belief that you are a person who prioritizes herself and that you create that time for yourself. Instead of trying to find that time for yourself, you actually create that time for yourself. And so that's what we try to teach and infuse and incorporate into all of these podcasts, even though we talk about all different topics. But that is kind of the premise behind where we're coming from when we say self-care from the inside out. We both actually, Angie and I, just got off of, well, I wasn't on vacation, but my kids were, or one of my kids was on vacation, February vacation. We live in New England. Yeah, we live in New England. Yeah, I think a lot of people have spring break, so it's just March, but we have February and April vacation.
When I lived in Utah, it was a very sad realization when I was working in the school system our last year there, and I'm like, what do you mean we don't get February break or April break?
Yeah.
You mean we get a long weekend in March?
Oh, you didn't even get a week? You just got a long weekend in March?
Like a 3-day week.
Oh, wow.
And then, so we got a long weekend, and it.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. I thought that everybody else in the country got March, or like a lot of people in the country got March. I didn't realize that in some places you don't even get that.
Yeah, you get a shorter long weekend or something like that.
Now, did you get out earlier?
Oh, yeah. In Utah, and they continue to get, it was always both my brother-in-law and sister-in-law were teachers in the system, and they'd be done by the first weekend of June every year. And so in Vermont, we, depending on your school system, like this year, we're getting out around the 16th, 17th, but I've known school systems that don't get out until the 20s, like 24, 25. And we don't have, it's not like we have central air in our schools. We don't. Our schools are not air conditioned. And even our most recently renovated ones aren't air conditioned, which is with global warming, May can be very hot. That was the other thing in Utah. I think we lived there for 3 years, and I think we had one snow day the entire time. I'm
surprised you had any.
Right. And it was because we had like back days of snowstorm. And so keeping up with the snow, I think, was the issue, because I remember it was like historical that we had no school. Mm-hmm. But I had time off because I took my vacation time. I like to take my vacation time. It's easier to take the vacation time when the students and the principals and the teachers aren't there. The staff aren't there. It's just easier. Right. But that's not what we were going to talk about today. So we kind of caught up.
Yeah. I mean, well, sort of, though. I mean, we're sort of talking about that.
Yeah.
So we're talking about unexpected free time or planned free time in terms of a vacation. And we were talking about this. So you can think about, so let's say you have a day to yourself that you weren't expecting, right? So, grandma came and took the kids or something, and you weren't expecting that. And then you had a day to yourself. Or it could be smaller, right? They napped longer, or they're at a friend's house or something. It's just, unexpected time that you get for yourself. And so we were talking about how you can think about that in two different ways. So it could either be, yay, I have this unexpected time and I am just going to use it for myself, and I'm going to sit here, or I'm going to read a book, or I'm going to, do this thing that I've been wanting to do. And it's a positive experience for you. It's something that kind of re-energized you and recharged you, and it was just sort of a happy accident kind of thing. The other way that it could present, that wasn't part of my plan. I have this time, and now it's almost like your routine is broken and you feel kind of like a fish out of water. So then you start thinking, well, I should be doing this, or I should be doing that. And you start with that whole thing. You might start thinking, well, I have this time. I could do this and this and this and this and this, right? And you come up with this huge list of stuff that is completely unrealistic to get to. And so, of course, you don't finish it. And then you kind of beat yourself up about it because you had all this time, and why didn't you use it properly or the right way? Or so we were talking about those kind of two presentations of what it could look like if you got some free time that you weren't expecting. The other part that we were talking about is, even if it's a planned vacation, taking a week off from work is something that most of us do at one time or another. You plan it, and whether you go away or not, it's like that in and of itself. It's like you look forward to the break, but then when you get there, when you get to the day that you're taking off, it could also be a stressor, right? Again, it depends on how you look at it. You could be happy about, well, I'm on vacation and yay, and I don't have to think about stuff and I can just disconnect. But the other side of that is it could be a stressor for you too, because now you're out of your routine. You're filling up your days with something that's new, so it's not familiar. It might feel awkward. If you're staying home for your vacation, you might come up with a list of things that you need to do. That's what I always do. I come up with a huge list of things that I need to do, and I never get to it.
The list.
Yeah, the list. And so that's kind of what we were talking about. And you can leave in the comments how you kind of view your vacations. But I almost think of it as whiplash, like, or yo-yo dieting, because it's like you're working, you're not working, you're working, you're not working, you're working, you're not working. It also kind of can make it hard to get back into routine. It's kind of like you spend the whole week trying to decondition yourself from working, and then you sort of finally get there, and then it's over, and now you have to make the transition back into work, which is also difficult. So it's almost like, is it even worth it to take a week's long vacation, or is it better to kind of like sprinkle your days around and take like a long weekend here and a long weekend there? I mean, I don't know. It depends for everybody, but it's just something.
It really depends on the nature of your work. If you're one of those fortunate folks that can take time off and your work is covered by other people, so when you go back, it's not like you're going to go back and have 4,000 emails and a pile of invoices to pay on your desk, because nobody does your work when you're not there.
Yep.
If you're fortunate enough that your work doesn't follow, depend on you alone, then I mean, I think that's part of I hadn't thought of that before, but that's definitely part of the angst about taking time off, is that I still have to get that work done. And when I was in the classroom, it was like I had to leave plans, and then I tried really hard to make those plans meaningful, so that my students' learning was actually moving forward and not just a day lost of learning.
Mm-hmm.
So there was, that consideration too. But,
yeah, that's the whole other piece of that I didn't even think of until you just said that. It's the leading up to vacation, trying to get everything done, trying to plan stuff out, trying to like make sure. And then when you're on vacation, there are jobs that you can't even disconnect from. So you're like still answering emails and still answering calls or texts or, being connected in some way because you can't disconnect. And in that way, that's also a stressor because now you're kind of have your foot in and your foot out. Like you're trying to, disconnect, but you can't really disconnect. So you're constantly kind of like being pulled in both directions. So, well, number one, it's how you think of it. So not everybody is going to think of vacation as a stressor. I would argue that anything that is a change in routine is somewhat of a stressor, whether it's intense or not so bad, or, it would vary, right? There's degrees of stress, but
it just doesn't necessarily need to be a negative, stress can be positive as well.
Right, exactly. And so how do you get through that part where you might be feeling either pulled in both directions or you're feeling like a fish out of water, so like sort of all that stuff gets brought up. I know during the pandemic, and not that that was a happy accident, but a lot of people found themselves at home not being able to work or not being able to work the same way and had a lot of free time during that time. I know for myself, I was sort of like, well, what do I do? What do I do with myself? And so all this stuff about my worth and my productivity and what am I even doing if I don't have anything that I can fill up this time with, and I should be doing this and I should be doing that, and I should use this time to learn a language, or I should use this time to like renovate the house, or and it's just like you just beat yourself up because the idea of just being there and just literally sitting or just like taking a walk or just doing not a lot, right? Just either doing nothing or not a lot. It feels to a lot of people, it feels wrong. It feels like you're doing something wrong. And so how do you kind of navigate through that and come out on the other side and realize that like you can't really mess up how you use your time?
I think it's an opportunity for you to really examine how you think about time. I think a lot of us, I think a lot of people think about time as a fixed asset, like a fixed thing. There's either enough time or not enough time. Like we say things like you can never get that time back. And but we also have experienced, I would venture a guess, most people have experienced that feeling that time is moving incrementally slow. Or you look up and 3 hours have gone by because you were in a state of such concentration on what you were doing that like you weren't conscious of time. Like if I spent this week, I did have to do some work. One day I went in for a short, that was planned, and then the other one was sort of an impromptu few hours to meet with somebody. If I was thinking about that all week long, then the time I had the time felt very precious because it was only this much time. Versus if I was thinking, this is my time and I get to spend it the way, like I planned it, like I planned things to do with friends and I planned activities to do like with myself. And it felt very, very different. So there's that idea, the idea that if I plan it, maybe I can make time feel more abundant. Or if I get an unexpected afternoon because the kids get invited to friends. I loved it when that happened. They both get invited to a friend's house. My youngest two are 2 years apart, 2 school years apart. So that would happen every now and then. And I'd be like, oh, what am I going to do with this time? Besides clean the refrigerator or change the cat pans,
Right.
What can I do that's actually bucket filling, if you will? I could be thinking about that in terms of abundance. I have this time to do something that I love and to create something, even if it's just sitting reading a book, having a cup of coffee and watching a TV show uninterrupted for, like that's one of my favorite things to do. I don't know. I'm thinking that maybe if you have a list of things that if you find that when you get that extra 15, 20 minutes or 3 hours or a whole day, have a list of things. Oh, if I got this gift of time, what would I do with it? What would be something I'd want to do? And of course, count on when that happens, you looking at the list and saying, ew, none of it, right? Of course, that's what your brain's going to say. I don't want to do that. I mean, a lot of times as we're recording this, I'm sitting in my studio, which is in a state of flux. And I am, because I'm purging and trying to get back down into the space to paint. And I'm taking a watercolor course. And it's like, there was that mindset like, well, I don't want to get all the paints out. I don't want to clean all the brushes, and your brain, count on the fact that your brain's going to tell you, you don't really have time to do that. But really, I've just found that thinking about the way I think about time and noticing that is really helpful. And you also start to notice when other people have a different relationship with time, right? There's people that are always running around with it like a chicken with their head cut off.
Yep.
Because they are in time scarcity all the time.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny because it's really, everybody gets the same amount of time, but it's really how you think about it. So like when you were talking about when your kids would be invited to friend's house and then you would have this extra time, or creating a list or thinking like, I should do this, I should do that, right? It's just like we put so much pressure on ourselves to fill up time, which is also just a made up thing because you can't fill up time. Time just is, right? But it's all these ways that we think about time that either help us or hurt us. It's like, I have to fill up my time. I mean, and really what you're saying is I need to make myself feel worthy of being here, and being here and doing nothing is not okay, when it really is. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to fill up your time, right? You don't have to learn a language. Those are the things that went through my mind in a pandemic. I'm like, I should learn Spanish. I should do this.
Well, then even around the time the pandemic, there was that uncertainty of like when we left school and we went remote, it was supposed to only be for 2 weeks. And then, then it became, to the end of the school year. And then it was like, are we continuing in the fall? So there was uncertainty around that. It's just how you think about that uncertainty and what you make it mean in terms of, okay, I have this time now. I think it's practicing that mindfulness, that presence of mind, that I have this time now, and how do I want to feel on the other end of it? When my kids are back and I'm, the craziness is happening around here, or I'm back at work, whatever your situation is. And how do I want to have felt when I think back to my time? When someone says, how was your afternoon? Or how was your day? How do you want that version of yourself to answer it?
Right.
And then work backward from there. So I want to say, I took a watercolor course and I started playing around with my watercolor paints again. It's been a hot minute since I've done that.
Yeah. I mean, and if you really just want to see what it's like to just do nothing and feel okay about it, right? I mean, that's like another way that you could think about it. So you could think about it like, not that you need to fill up your time, but I would like to use my time to do this or that, the watercolor, or, I do like organizing stuff. It takes me a while, so I don't just jump into it. I do feel like I have to kind of plan it, but I do enjoy doing that, so if it's something like that, but it's taking away the idea that you need to fill up your time or you should be doing this with your time. I think that's the piece of it. Like, that's the part that puts all the pressure on you, like even just the idea of when you go on vacation, even just the idea of I should have fun on my vacation. Like, I should be doing something other than my normal daily routines, right? And really, should you? You could, but do you have to, right? I think that's the part that puts so much pressure on people is we have, as a society, these certain ideas of what it should be like when you're not working, like retirement, for example, right? Everybody kind of has this vague idea of retirement as I'm not working, so now I get to do whatever I want. And so I'm just going to go sit on a beach somewhere forever, right? I mean, but when you think about it,
you might get hungry after a while, but
yeah,
cold.
But when you think about it, is that really what you want to do? Or do you want to do that sometimes and do something else other times? Like, even if you retire from your profession that you've been doing for a while, it doesn't mean that you can't still work. You could if you want to. You don't have to. You could if you want to, right? So I think it's just replacing the I need to and I should with I want to and I could if I wanted to.
Oh, I love that. I need to and I should with I want to and I could. You made a rhyme.
I made a rhyme. I am talented like that.
Replacing I need to and I should with I want to and I could.
Just takes that pressure off.
It certainly does. I mean, just saying it makes me feel like the possibilities are, I mean, that can get you into feeling very overwhelmed if the possibilities are endless, but the possibility is up to me. The possibility is within me to create that. So I get to decide how I feel when I go back to work tomorrow morning. And I get to decide how I think about this vacation and how I use this vacation. So.
I mean, you can even back it up even further and say you get to decide if you go back to work tomorrow.
I do? I do?
You do. You could not go back.
I might not go back.
I'm not saying that's what you should do. I'm just saying, like, you could think of it that way. Like, if you turn everything that you feel like every time, people say, I need to do this. I need to make dinner. I need to go do that. I need to go do this. If you replace that with, I want to, or even I will.
Yeah.
It feels more expansive than I need to. I need to feels like locked in and it's not your choice and somebody's making you do it or something is making you do it. Like, it's out of your control. And all of that just feels terrible. And that's why we resist it, because it feels like it's pushing us in a direction that we might not want to go in. And so we push back.
Right.
And that's where that resistance comes from. But in terms of time, I think it's the same thing. It's what you choose to do with your time is what you choose to do with your time. You don't have to subscribe to what everybody else thinks that you should do with your time. Like, if, when you have kids, well, some people think that you should take them everywhere and, put them in all these different activities and make sure that their days fill up. And that's what you should do. So just as a side note, I don't know if anybody can hear this, but we have the loudest plane on the planet going over our house right now. So it's like shaking my whole house. people tell you what you should do and what you shouldn't do with your time. And I guess what we're saying is question that, right? Question if you need to do the things that you're doing with your time. What feels good and what doesn't feel good? Not necessarily in the moment, because it feels good to lie in bed and not get up or just lie around all day and watch Netflix. But how are you feeling after that? And that's, you got to kind of look ahead a little bit. I mean, sometimes it's what you need, you need to like be in bed, or you need to watch Netflix all day and you feel great. You're like, oh, I really needed that. But sometimes when you do stuff like that, at the end of it, you don't feel so good. So just thinking ahead about what you would want to do with your time and how you want to feel at the end of it.
So when I think back, when I get to this evening and I'm thinking about the week, I decided that I wanted to feel that I had connected with loved ones. I want to feel that I had connected with myself, and that I had moved forward on some things, those very basic things. And I also want to think that I took time to rest and restore. At this point, I feel that I could say, yes, I did all those things for myself this week.
Yeah, you get to choose how you use your time or not use it.
That's right.
You could just do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. I just think it's important for people to really question what they're saying to themselves about how they use their own time.
Be curious.
Be curious. Stay curious. Staying curious is one of the cornerstones for self-care from the inside out. Okay, everybody, I think that's what we have for you this week. We'll be back next week. If you have suggestions for topics or something that you want to hear about, leave us a note in the comments and we will see if we can talk about that. All right, we'll see you next week, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening today. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to us if you like, subscribe, and share. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. This makes it easier for everyone to find us and helps us spread our message about self-care from the inside out. Have a wonderful week, and remember, making yourself the priority is the highest form of self-care.